Silence is often judged before it is understood. Someone hurts you, and instead of reacting, you go quiet. No argument, no defense, just stillness. And almost immediately, people begin to label it cold, distant, uncommunicative. But what if that silence is not distance at all? What if it is depth? Psychology tells us that when a person goes quiet under emotional pain, something complex is happening beneath the surface. The nervous system slows things down, the mind begins to process, protect, and stabilize. But here is where it becomes even more powerful. Scripture has been describing this reality long before psychology gave it a name. So let me ask you something. When you go quiet, is it weakness, or could it be wisdom? Because the Bible does not rush to condemn silence. In fact, it often reveals something deeper within it. Psalm 4:4 says, "Be angry, and do not sin. Meditate within your heart on your bed, and be still." Be still. Not react immediately, not speak recklessly, be still. That changes the entire perspective, does it not? So what is really happening when someone goes quiet after being hurt? What is the psychology behind it? And more importantly, what does God say about it? Stay with me. Because once you see both sides together, science and scripture, you will stop seeing silence as a flaw and start recognizing it as something far more meaningful. Let us begin with what happens internally. When you are hurt, your body does not wait for logic, it reacts. Your chest tightens, your thoughts scatter, and suddenly, words feel unreachable. Have you ever stood there, knowing something hurt you deeply but unable to explain it? That is not avoidance. That is your nervous system protecting you. Psychology calls this the freeze response. When emotions overwhelm your system, your brain slows everything down so you do not collapse under the weight of it. Now here comes the connection to Scripture. Ecclesiastes 3:7 says, "There is a time to keep silence and a time to speak." Notice that silence is not condemned. It is timed, intentional, appropriate. So let me ask you something. What if your silence is not you shutting people out, but you waiting for the right moment to speak? Because speaking too early can turn pain into damage. And Proverbs 17:27 says, "He who has knowledge spares his words." Spare your words, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand the weight of saying it too soon. So here is the shift. Your silence is not empty. It is processing, deep, internal, necessary processing. But that leads to a deeper question. Why did you learn to respond this way? Because this did not start yesterday. No one is born silent in pain. Children express everything. They cry, they react, they speak without hesitation. So what changed? At some point, something taught you that expressing pain openly was not safe. Maybe your feelings were dismissed. Maybe you were told to be strong. Maybe vulnerability led to rejection. So your mind adapted. It learned something powerful. Silence is safer than exposure, and psychology confirms this. The way we respond to emotional pain is shaped by early relationships and experiences. Now listen to what Scripture says. Proverbs 18:14 says, "The spirit of a man will sustain him in sickness. But who can bear a broken spirit? A broken spirit, that is not physical pain. That is emotional injury. And when that happens repeatedly, something inside learns to protect itself. So let me ask you honestly, when you go quiet, is it because you do not feel? Or because you have felt too much, too many times? That question matters because it shifts the narrative. Now here comes the deeper layer. Your silence is not only protecting you, it is also protecting others. This is where everything becomes clearer. Sometimes you go quiet because you know what you are capable of saying in pain, words that cut, words that cannot be taken back, so you hold them, you wait. And Scripture speaks directly to this. James 1:19 says, "Let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger." Slow to speak. Why? Because unprocessed pain speaks recklessly. And Proverbs 29:11 adds, "A fool vents all his feelings, but a wise man holds them back." Hold them back, not forever, but until they can be expressed with clarity instead of chaos. Now, here is the psychological truth. When you go quiet, your brain is actively processing, replaying, analyzing, trying to understand before responding. And here is the spiritual truth. God does not rush you out of that space. Psalm 62:1 says, "Truly my soul silently waits for God." Silently waits, not forced expression, not immediate reaction waiting. So here is the real question. What if your silence is not distance, but preparation? Preparation for truth, preparation for clarity, preparation for words that actually heal instead of harm. Because when you finally speak, it is not reaction, it is intention, and that is rare. Now step back and see the full picture. Psychology explains the mechanism. Your nervous system protects you. Your mind processes deeply. Your silence holds everything together. Scripture confirms the wisdom. There is a time to be silent. Be slow to speak, wait in stillness before responding. So what does God say about people who go quiet when they are hurt? He does not call them weak. He calls them wise. When that silence leads to understanding. But here is the balance you must hold. Silence protects you. But it is not meant to isolate you forever. Even Jesus withdrew in silence. But he always returned to speak truth. So here is the final question. Is your silence helping you heal, or slowly building walls around you? Because there is a difference. God honors your stillness. But he also calls you into connection, into truth, into healing conversations at the right time. So do not rush yourself, but do not hide forever either, because the goal is not just to stay silent. The goal is to speak when your heart is ready. And when you do, your words will carry something powerful, not reaction, not confusion, but truth, shaped in silence.